I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York Transportation Development Corporation for Monday, February 24th, 2020. I'd like to note for the record this meeting is being webcast and that we welcome public comment on the items on our agenda. Directors have received the relevant written materials in advance and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'll ask if any directors have a conflict or potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. Hearing none, our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of December 19th, 2019. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions regarding the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Peter Halbrun will present the next agenda item requesting authorization to adopt the pre-qualified lists of the New York State Urban Development Corporation, DBA, Empire State Development, of underwriters and financial advisors. Peter, take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon. At the New York Transportation Development Corporation Board of Directors meeting held on February 16th, 2017, the directors adopted the New York State Urban Development Corporation, or ESD, pre-qualified list of underwriters and financial advisors. The directors are now being asked to adopt ESD's new list of underwriters and financial advisors, which were approved by the ESD board at its meeting last week on February 20th. In November of 2019, ESD issued an RFP seeking firms to serve as underwriters and financial advisors. The RFP was advertised in the New York State Contract Reporter, was posted to ESD's website, and was also emailed to over 100 firms. ESD received responses from 45 firms. Staff from Treasury, the Office of Contractor and Supplier Diversity, and the Chief Financial Officer formed a team to review and score the responses. Evaluation criteria included experience of both the firm and the individuals comprising the municipal finance team, competitive bond sales participation, ideas and analyses provided to ESD, commitment to public finance, and other factors. Included in the underwriters that were selected are 7 MWBE firms and 2 service-disabled veteran-owned firms. The slate of underwriters and financial advisors were approved by ESD for a period of 2 years, and authority was granted to the CFO or treasurer to extend that term for 1 year, and the CFO can further extend for an additional year. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, Peter, thanks for the summary and all the work that went into that. Are there any questions or comments from the directors on this item to Peter?
No.
If there are any comments from the public on this item? Oh, I'm sorry, was there a question? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is it second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone. I'll now ask Doug Brissett to present the next item requesting authorization to perform certain acts in connection with the sale and delivery of the New York Transportation Development Corporation Special Facility Revenue Bonds. Doug.
Thanks, Howard. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're asking the board to approve the operative provisions, sales terms, official statement, bond purchase agreement, related documents, and related actions in connection with the sale and delivery of New York Transportation Development Corporation, TDC, Special Facility Revenue Bonds, Series 2020 A and B, for the Terminal 4 JFK International Airport project. The Series 2020 bonds are to be issued for the benefit of the borrower, JFK International Air Terminal, LLC. The borrower has requested that TDC issue the Series 2020 bonds to 1. Provide funds to defease and redeem in full the outstanding Port Authority of New York, New Jersey Special Project Bonds, Series 6. and also a portion of the outstanding Series 8 bonds. 2, to fund the debt service reserve funds of the Series 2020 bonds. And 3, pay for costs associated with the issuance of the Series 2020 bonds. The Series 2020 bonds will be special limited revenue obligations of TDC, and be payable from 1, certain payments to be made by the borrower to TDC under the loan agreement by and between TDC and the borrower and the promissory note of the borrower. And 2, the unconditional guarantee from the borrower to the trustee for the benefit of the owners of all Series 2020 bonds, payment of the principal, redemption price, and purchase price of, and interest on the Series 2020 bonds when and as due and payable. The borrower leases JFK Terminal 4 from the Port Authority. As security for the payment of the borrower's obligations under the loan agreement, the note, and the guarantee, the borrower will grant to TDC and the trustee for the benefit of the bondholders a leasehold mortgage on the borrower's leasehold interest under the lease. This will be referred to as TDC leasehold mortgage. JFK Terminal 4 will constitute the premises under the lease agreement and will be subject to the lien of the TDC leasehold mortgage. The Series 2020 bonds will be further secured by certain monies and securities held by the trustee for the Series 2020 bonds under the indenture. TDC will be a mortgagee to secure an exemption from the mortgage recording tax and will assign its interest in the TDC leasehold mortgage to the trustee for the benefit of the holders of the 2020 bonds, except for certain reserved rights. TDC will also assign its right, title, and interest under the note and loan agreement, except for certain reserved rights, to the trustee as security for the Series 2020 bonds. As is customary in a TDC conduit financing, the rights and responsibilities of TDC are limited under the indenture and other financing documents. The borrower has agreed to indemnify TDC, the state, JDA, and ESD against certain liabilities or to contribute to any payments required to be made by TDC relating to such liabilities, including liabilities under federal securities laws. In accordance with the attached resolution, you are hereby requested to 1, approve the terms and authorize the sale of the Series 2020 bonds on a negotiated basis. 2, confirm the appointment of certain professionals. 3, approve the form and content of the official statement and various other documents connected with the sale and delivery of the Series 2020 bonds. And 4, authorize certain TDC officers and employees to take all actions deemed necessary to accomplish the final sale and delivery of the Series 2020 bonds. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Yep. I just, it might just be my broad education that I'm lacking here in relation to this, but I didn't hear that the bonds are going to be secured by lease payments of any kind. There was some kind of scheduled payment that you referred to in the beginning of the statement. Did it include actual lease payments as well?
Yes.
That are articulated there?
So Terminal 4 is leased by the borrower from the Port Authority, and they are then pledging those lease payments to us, and we are then further contributing them into the indenture.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. We normally hear that lease payments are involved as well as a recurring revenue stream and not just a scheduled payment.
Right.
Set up. Okay. Thank you.
So I just want to make sure, because I was looking through, this is a lovely document, thank you for the 900 pages, it was great afternoon reading, but is the aggregate amount is $500 million?
Up to.
Up to, okay.
That's correct.
Just wanted to make sure. All right.
And one additional question, this is a little bit different than our normal conduit debt, but it remains that no matter what the structure, this debt is, it's still TDC has no responsibility for payments.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Correct.
Except to the extent it receives the payment,
Right, of course.
conceptually
It can,
receives.
exactly. Thank you. True, John. Great, thank you.
Thank you. No other questions.
Any other questions or comments for Doug? Doug, they certainly found had good timing with respect to issuing bonds. It's the best timing in 50 years, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
Are there any comments from the public? Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, is there a motion to approve this item presented by Doug?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? I'm sorry, is there any comment from the public? Okay, no comment from the public. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Jonathan Byer will provide one presentation on the next 3 agenda items, requesting authorization to prepare documents for the issuance of bonds, take related actions, and to enter into contracts for legal services, all for the Fuller Road Management Corporation Nanotechnology Facilities Project. We will then take one vote on all 3 items following Jonathan's presentation. Jonathan, take it away.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Fuller Road Management Corp., or FRMC, has requested that the corporation issue its lease revenue refunding bond, Series 2020, Fuller Road Management Corporation Nanotechnology Facilities Project, or the Series 2020 bonds, and loan these net proceeds to FRMC as part of FRMC's refinancing of its outstanding debt. FRMC owns and operates a consortium of nanotechnology facilities that are primarily located on the SUNY Polytechnic campus in Albany, New York. FRMC has approximately $350 million of outstanding debt consisting of bank loans, bonds, and a bank line of credit. This debt was used to finance the construction of specific buildings on the Fuller Road campus. Most of the debt is either scheduled to mature or has a mandatory tender in early May 2020. The 2020 bonds will be issued under an indenture of trust, and the proceeds of the bonds will be loaned to FRMC pursuant to a loan agreement. FRMC's obligation to repay the loan will be a limited obligation secured by an assignment of rental payments due with respect to portions of the facilities leased to the Research Foundation of the State University of New York. The bonds will be special obligations to the corporation payable only from amounts received from FRMC under the loan agreement. In order to commence this work, the TDC is being asked to appoint underwriters and 2 counsels, all of which are on respective pre-qualified lists adopted by the TDC. For the underwriters, in addition, a 6-member FRMC evaluation committee comprised of 3 FRMC representatives and 1 representative from each of Empire State Development, State University of New York, and the SUNY Research Foundation. This committee selected Goldman Sachs & Company, LLC, as the senior managing underwriter through an extensive procurement process. Goldman was selected on the basis of cost, analytical elements of its proposed long-term debt financing proposal, and its extensive experience in municipal finance. As noted, Goldman is on the pre-qualified list. The corporation, in consultation with FRMC, has also recommends selecting Loop Capital Markets and Siebert Williams Shank & Company, LLC, as co-managers from the pre-qualified list of underwriters. Staff is also requesting consent by the Board of Directors to commence drafting documents. An additional meeting of the Board will occur so that the Board of Directors can approve the final form of documents. With respect to counsel, it is recommended that Mintz Levin and D. Seaton and Associates, an NWBE firm that will be allocated a 30% participation, serve as co-bond counsel for this transaction. Selection of counsel for this transaction was based on the fact that counsel has experience serving as bond counsel for the corporation and its affiliates, as well as other significant and applicable work. Staff recommends the retention of these firms for the bonds based on counsel's specific and necessary expertise, performance with distinction on other transactions, rate proposal, and the ESD pre-qualification process. Both sets of counsel would advise the corporation on securities, bonds, taxes, and other related legal matters in connection with the issuance and sale of the bonds. Like other TDC matters, this is a conduit financing with no corporation funds at risk. Accordingly, FRMC will fully fund all counsel costs and expenses. Counsel would work at their typical hourly rate, less a discount. All counsel costs and expenses are expected to be paid from bond proceeds on or about the closing. In addition, counsel will acknowledge that the corporation will have no obligation to pay any legal fees except to the extent funds are received from the borrower for that purpose. Accordingly, it is now requested that the board retain these underwriters and counsel and authorize the drafting of documents related to this transaction.
Okay. That's great, Jonathan. Let me ask if directors have any questions for Jonathan on either of these three items.
Jonathan, this is a first for me in terms of the Fuller management. Have we done this before for Fuller?
No, we've not. This is the first.
And it's within, I assume you'll be able to tell me this, that affirmatively, it's within our charter or mission statement within the ambit of the Transportation Development Corp to refund or issue bonds for
Yes.
Fuller Road management.
The Transportation Development Corporation's certificate of incorporation tracks very closely the general grant of authority of the types of transactions that can be issued by this type of local development corp set forth in not-for-profit corporation law. So, so not only the statute, but the certificate of incorporation, which mirrors that, provides a broad sort of lessening the burdens of government, and this is part of what the corporation would be determining, is that this would be lessening government.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's a curiosity question more than anything else. Said it's rental payments from SUNY ARF. How much is the occupancy? Do they occupy a lot already, Fuller Road, for the entity? And you may not know.
They in turn sublet.
Right. Is the occupancy rate enough to pay?
Well,
Well,
Yeah,
it's the lease payments from the Research Foundation to Fuller Road that's securing this debt. And
Right.
those are long-term leases.
Okay. I mean, so they've got occupancy. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, or to a large extent, we rely on the underwriters who are analyzing the rental history,
Right, yeah, okay.
determine the cash flow, and assess that there's sufficient amount to repay.
So
debts.
we're still, okay. We'll know that answer.
And that kind of leads into what I was, so we're potentially issuing up to their full debt amount of $350 million, but subject to what underwriters see is coming in, what debt service it could meet.
It's already been analyzed, yes,
And the intent is to refund all of it.
yes.
Oh, so they have enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.
I'll just make a comment, which is, and just for those of you who don't have the whole history, and I'm not going to recount it, but this was where ESD was invited to the table, so to speak, to sort out and help stabilize these myriad of projects associated with SUNY Nano up in Albany. There was about a dozen projects around the state, and there were these related entities and organizations, all of which needed to be reorganized and put in a healthier and more sustainable position. And I think we've been working on this for, Elaine would say, 3 years, and I think it's been maybe 3 or more years, I'm not sure. But, this was one of many examples where ESD brought its full array of experiences and skills to the table to really help reestablish credibility for SUNY Nano with industry, to help advance the many projects that were stalled, to help restructure, as we are here, the finances of these organizations. I think it's a real credit to ESD over the years. And this is one of the culminating projects and refinancings that we've been talking about for quite a while. So I'm excited to be at this point. Anyway, are there any other questions or comments to Jonathan on these three items? Is there any comment from the public on these items? Is there a motion to approve all three items?
Move. Second.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, thank you very much. As with the previous three items, unless someone objects, Julene Beckford will make one presentation on the next four items, requesting authorization to prepare documents for the issuance of bonds, take related actions, and to enter into contracts for legal services, all for the New York State Thruway Service Area Redevelopment Project. We will then take one vote on all four items following Julene's presentation. Julene, take it away.
Good afternoon and thank you. Empire State Thruway Partners, LLC, which I will refer to as ESTP, has requested that the corporation issue bonds and loan the net proceeds to finance the redevelopment of service areas along the New York State Thruway. Following a procurement process, the New York State Thruway Authority selected ESTP to redevelop the 27 service areas along the New York State Thruway. This redevelopment project will include the design, construction, and financing of the improvements of those service areas. ESTP or its assignee will be a special purpose vehicle organized for the sole purpose of entering into a lease agreement with New York State Thruway Authority. ESTP will control the service areas for a period of up to 33 years through its leasehold interest in the sites and will enter into a sublease with an affiliated operating company that will be charged with managing the food and beverage operations and related traveler services at the service areas. It is contemplated that the revenues generated from the food and beverage operations and related traveler services at the service areas and payments under the sublease will be pledged as security for the debt service and repayment of the bonds. In order to move forward with this transaction, staff is seeking authorization from the corporation to do the following: appoint underwriters, take actions related to TEFRA, induce a project for private activity financing, review and prepare bond documents, and enter into contracts with bond counsel. I will now speak specifically about each of these items. With regard to underwriters, staff seeks the consent of the directors to adopt the selection of Citigroup Global Markets, Inc., or Citi, to serve as the senior managing underwriter for the bonds and to delegate to the corporation, in consultation with ESTP, the ability to appoint additional underwriters as the transaction progresses. Citi is on the corporation's pre-qualified list of underwriters, and any additional underwriters will be selected from the list in order to satisfy the MWBE requirements. With regard to TEFRA, or the Tax Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act, a hearing is required prior to the issuance of qualified private activity bonds in certain circumstances. The corporation has been requested to act as the issuer of qualified private activity bonds for this project, and as a result, a TEFRA hearing may be required. TEFRA also requires an approval from the applicable elected representative of the issuer of qualified private activity bonds, in this case the governor, to approve the transaction. The governor's approval is intended to be obtained immediately following a TEFRA hearing.
That's me calling.
Accordingly, the Board of Directors is requested to authorize the holding of a public hearing, the publication of prior notice of the hearing, and the subsequent request to the governor for approval of the bonds. With regard to an inducement of the project will allow the bond proceeds of an expected maximum principal amount of up to approximately $400 million to be used, among other things, to reimburse the project expenditures made by ESTP or its assignee prior to the date or dates of the issuance of the bonds, thereby expediting the project. It is important to note that prior to the issuance of the bonds, the form of financing documents must be fully and formally confirmed, including without limitation, the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. The corporation is not obligated to approve the project, to issue the bonds, or take any other actions related to the project. Without the inducement, only limited types of project expenditures made by ESTP more than 60 days prior to the issuance of bonds could be reimbursed with tax-exempt bond proceeds. It is intended also that the bonds will be issued to, with regards to preparation of the documents, it is intended that the bonds will be issued to finance the project. Accordingly, documents must be drafted and approved for the issuance of the bonds expeditiously. Staff is requesting consent by the Board of Directors to commence drafting of documents. And also, I should note that an additional meeting of the Board will occur so that the Board can approve the final form of documents. And lastly, this afternoon, I'm also requesting authorization for the corporation to enter into legal services contracts with 3 firms, Cozen O'Connor, the Hardwick Law Firm, and Drohan Lee, in connection with the issuance of these bonds. These firms were selected from ESD's legal pre-qualified list as having bond financing expertise and experience working on state bond issuances. Bond counsel is needed to ensure the corporation's compliance with federal tax law requirement for an opinion from bond counsel on tax-exempt bonds. Further, bond counsel expertise is necessary to ensure compliance with applicable securities laws and market practices. Cozen O'Connor and the Hardwick Law Firm would serve as co-bond counsel. Cozen O'Connor would be required to make good faith efforts to ensure participation in the drafting of the legal services by the Hardwick firm, which is an NWPE certified firm. And disclosure counsel is needed on this transaction to ensure the corporation's compliance with disclosure requirements for issuers of tax-exempt bonds under federal securities laws and market practices. Drohan Lee, an MWBE certified firm, would act as disclosure counsel. These firms would advise the corporation in securities, bonds, taxes, and other related legal matters in connection with the issuance and sale of bonds. I think that's where I'll stop. So just so you know, these contracts will be funded from bond proceeds and from any amounts from ESTP. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Good job.
Okay. All right, that's a mouthful. Julene had 4 items, mostly procurement of legal services, but as well authorization to prepare documents for the issuance of bonds. These projects relating to the New York State Thruway Service Area Redevelopment Project. Any questions or comments from directors for Julene on any of these 4 items?
Just have a comment. Make sure they have more vegetarian options. That's it, but I have no other questions.
There you go.
No
Excellent.
for the toilets?
No, they're actually pretty good.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Any other menu requests? Okay. Well, is there a motion to approve these 4 items?
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Well, we had a very meaty agenda, and I congratulate and thank all of you for advancing so many important projects across the great state of New York. I don't think we have any other items. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you all. Great work. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Howard.
See ya.